We'll be recording all the boring preliminaries as well as the exciting meat and potatoes. Good. So we have a lot of folks here. I'm going to make sure that all the buttons are pushed the way they need to be pushed and give folks a minute or two to trickle in. You know, I have to say I really love the way this online meeting software works because it's very much like a real world get together. I know we're going to have folks straggle in. I know we're going to have folks who have to leave early, folks that'll say, I can't make this one, hope I can make the next one. So in that way, it's very much like real life. So we have people viewing and we have people actually on the call with us. And I don't know if you guys can see the different types of people, but I can differentiate. It looks like everybody who's actually on Blab with me right here, right now, is a Uke Club member. And I will say that this technically is a public forum. There's no way for me to close it down and make this purely private. Unlike the lessons that I did last week, I haven't announced this to the world. I've only announced it to our Uke Club, but it does show up on, some of the public directories. So in theory, people who are not in the Uke Club could jump in and be with us. So my advice is keep your clothes on and don't say anything that you don't want to have out on the internet. That said, I expect that because I didn't publicize it at all, we will mostly have people from within the Uke Club. I'm going to say hi to Lynn real quick. I see that, who's here with us right now? Lynn. And Ken is here. Jerry is here. Mary Beth is here. Nice to have you. Todd jumped in. I didn't think you were going to be able to make it, Todd. So glad you're here. And then it looks like we have some viewers from around. So we're just going to let those folks hang out with us. This was important to me. Good, Todd. I hope we give you some value here today. So some of you I've talked with before, some of you I haven't. So welcome, one and all. This is the first of what's going to be our weekly meetings. We're going to try that for a month rather than what we had originally planned, which was just to do a monthly get-together. The logic behind my thinking was that we've got such a big group and we have such a friendly, generous group that I thought it would be better for us to get together for a shorter time more often than to have all that weight on a single once a month meeting. Felt like it was a lot of weight on me to make it feel like it was important and portentous, and kind of a lot of weight on you too to save up your questions or feel like you weren't able to communicate with other people in the group. Of course, we have the Facebook method of interaction, but as you can see, we have 4 squares on the screen, and each of those 4 squares can be filled by any of you. So if you want to be on screen, it's just like having a conversation. It's not like being on a talk show. So you don't have to worry about being camera shy or anything like that. It's just hanging out and talking. I would love it when we open it up for questions and answers. If you're able, if you have the technology and willing to come on, I'd rather do it on screen as a conversation. If you don't want to be on screen though, you can leave comments over to the side. There's a chat area where you can just type in anything that you want. Anything that you type in there will show to everybody in the group. If you want to specifically ask a question, if you type /Q and then your question, it will show up in the questions area and pull some attention to it. I'm going to do one right now. This is a question. So it shows up with the tag question. I can click over to the area that's labeled questions and then make sure that I'm not missing anything. All right, so it's 1:03. I figure folks have trickled in now. You're welcome to jump into any of the open spots. You just click on join in any of the little Brady Bunch windows. You know what, do me a favor, I'm just curious for the folks who are here, type in where you are located. I would just love to know which parts of the world we're representing. I'm guessing because of the time, we're mostly going to be North America. And in the meantime, I'm going to get tuned up real quick. Oh, nice. Well, all over North America, Salt Lake City, Southwest Florida. Jerry is in Arlington, Newark, Ohio. Nice. So welcome one and all. So here's the way I thought I would run this. We're kind of going to get the feel of these weekly meetings together. I'm happy to take suggestions, through the Facebook group or private emails if you prefer. Oh, 2 folks from Ohio. That's interesting. But my feeling for the way to run these sessions is, one, to keep them short. I want to respect your time. I don't want to make it feel like a big commitment, especially since we're going to be trying them once a week for a while. I have today a short little lesson planned for us that's independent of what we're doing in the uke club. Something it's going to be a little movable chord exercise. So no matter where you are in the uke club exercises, this will live apart from that. Since we're recording, this will be available for others as well. But primarily, I want to make myself available to you as a bonus feature of your uke club membership. People have been very vocal on the Facebook group, and I get tons of emails with specific questions, usually about lessons in the uke club. So I thought this would be a good way for us to directly interact with each other, and I can try to answer your questions. Maybe you with a ukulele in your hand and me with a ukulele in my hand. So we'll take questions in a few minutes. I thought I'd do this little 5-minute lesson first, but give me a quick show of hands. You can click the hands button in my little window, and that shows me that you're hearing what I say. And I'm just curious, if you think you might have a question later, give me the hands. Sort of help me gauge what's going on. Okay, so it doesn't look like there's a huge amount of questions. That's great. And again, I'll say anybody who wants to jump in and be on screen with me, really at any time, even during the formal lesson period, is fine. So I'm going to call that the introduction, and maybe I can even edit the video so that's all out, so it's not a boring repeat for the people that are viewing it later. Berea, Ohio says, are you recording? And the answer is yes, I am recording. Thanks for the reminder. So I'm curious, how many of you have dealt with movable chords in your experience as ukulele players? You can either type yes or give me some hands. I know in the uke club itself, we've touched on it, but we have people at all different levels in the uke club right now. The idea of a movable chord, let me tell you what it's valuable for, and then I'm going to talk you through the very basics about how to do this. It really is a deep subject, and I think we'll probably address it in 2 or 3 sessions, and even we'll call those 2 or 3 sessions an introduction to movable chords. So the value of movable chords is that when you learn one shape, that shape can be moved anywhere on the neck of the ukulele, and thereby you've created more chords. Let me give you a real obvious example. Probably most of you are familiar with the D7 chord. I'm doing the barred D7. Rotate just a little bit to make sure you can see that. Doesn't matter if you can do this chord yet or not. I want to explain it to you in principle. Ray Lynn is here. Hi, Ray Lynn. I'm barring across the 2nd fret and adding 1st string, 3rd fret. That's a D7 chord. And what I want you to understand is that that's the D7 shape, okay? It's the D7 chord made with the D7 shape. What do I mean by shape? Well, I mean that independent of frets, I could make that shape, bar +1, anywhere on the neck on any fret. I could make it there. I could make it there. I could make it there. And it still is a D7 shape. Make sense? Give me hands or give me a yes. I want to know that this is as simple as it is, that it's making sense. Okay. Good. Thank you for the encouragement. So that's the idea. The shape is independent of the chord itself. Kind of freaky, right? The shape is independent of the chord name. So this will always be, we could call it shape 1. We could call it shape A. Let's not do that. That'll confuse it with chord names. But because it's a common familiar D7, it's simplest just to call it the D7 shape. Now, here's the concept of movable chords, and then we're going to move it into concrete terms, something you can actually use it for. D7 at the 2nd fret. I know we have professional musicians here, we have other music teachers here, and we also have people who have scarcely ever held a ukulele in their hands before. So, pardon me if I overstate the obvious. I want to make sure we're all together on this. As we go up the musical scale, you know, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. The scale just repeats. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And that's what happens when you move up the neck of the ukulele. As we go up, each fret is a half step. So I don't want to go into too much detail about sharps and flats and all that. But we're moving up the neck in steps up the scale. So if I hold that D flat shape at the 2nd fret, it is a D, I said a D flat. I meant to say a D7 shape. If I hold that D7 shape at the 2nd fret, the D7 shape equates to a D7 chord. The shape matches the chord. With me? Say yes. Give me some hands. I'm used to dealing with people in a class, and I can just look and see the glazed eyes or the happy epiphanies. All right, here's the next step. I'm going to take the D7 shape. I'm going to forget that it is a D7 chord. I no longer care. I'm going to move it up the neck. Up the neck means I'm getting higher. Okay, let's count the fret numbers. Our D7 shape is starting at fret 2. I move it up to fret 3. I move it up to fret 4. So now it is a new chord. It's the same shape, but instead of being a D7 chord at fret 2, I'm going to move it up to fret 4. Who wants to tell me what chord name that is? What's the name of that chord when I make the D7 shape at the 4th fret? Anybody got it? Okay, I'm going to tell you. It is an E7. And why is it an E7? Because I'm moving up the scale. D7, when I move it up 1 fret, becomes a D sharp 7 or an E flat 7. They're the same. 1 more fret goes to E7. D, D sharp, E. So do you see how within those 3 frets I've created 3 chords, but the 3 chords are made with the exact same shape? With me? Give me some hands. Give me a yes. All right. Maybe you have your ukulele in your hands and you don't want to bother typing. That's okay too. I just like the occasional feedback. It's actually a little unseemly here because I'm talking and I don't know if anyone can hear me. So let's double check that. Here's D7. I told you when we move up, it goes to an E7 at the 4th fret. You may know 1st position E7 back here. So there's the sound of E7, the way you probably have learned it at the 1st fret. Here's the sound of what I just taught you as an E7. Okay, you can tell that it's almost the same. It's the same value. We're stacking up our chords slightly differently. So we're not going to go into a lot of detail about how that magic works, but if you get this idea that any shape that covers all 4 strings can be moved, then all of a sudden, instead of learning 1 chord when you learn a new shape, you learn a dozen chords, however many frets you have. If you have a really long ukulele, then you've got a really long way to go to make more and more chords. Let me just finish this point. I'll show you. D7 at the 2nd fret. I move up a fret with the same shape, D sharp or E flat, E7, at the 4th fret, F7, G7. Oh, just like that G7. Yep. All right. And you can see how you keep going on and on and on as long as your neck is. Somebody out there may have the ukulele with an infinite neck I've been hearing about, in which case you have an infinite number of chords. All right. We're going to take this one step further, and then that's going to be the lesson for today. And I'm happy to answer questions about this or anything else related to ukuleles or about the uke club itself. So how you doing so far? You with me? Need a cigarette? Drink of water? All right. There's another way of looking at this. As I just showed you, if you move your D7 shape to the 4th fret, it is still a D7 shape, but because you've moved it to the 4th fret, it's a new chord name. It's an E7. So the value of this and the magic of this is that now you know 2 E7s. You know this E7 at the 1st and 2nd frets, and you know this E7 at the 4th and 5th frets. Now there are other E7s further up the neck. And how this comes into play is when you start going to, I'd call it not 2nd level ukulele, but it's beyond probably 2nd level, but not quite 3rd level ukulele. You're going to start to want to play a little bit of melody with your ukulele. You're going to get so sick of just playing a couple of open chords and singing, "Come and sit by my side if you love me." That's where most people start. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's campfire ukulele. And it's wonderful as far as it goes. But for dedicated uke players like you who are spending time and money and effort to try to get better, you're going to want to move up. You're going to want to move into melody playing. Even if you're just adding in occasional melody notes, you're going to want to have some deeper knowledge. So by playing E7 here, most of the time when you play a melody, that first string is going to be where the melody comes from, because it's the highest pitched, because you hit it a certain way. So by being able to play multiple versions of your chords, whatever that melody note is might change. So by having 2 E7s in this example, you could play a melody that went from there to there while still going over an E7. You have the ability to capture the sound of that melodic change because you have 2 E7s. All right, one more step and then we really are done. Let me give you an example. I'm going to make a movable G chord, a G chord. Let's make it a movable G7 chord. So anytime you cover strings, that shape can be moved in the manner that I just showed you. But what's wrong with the G7? What might make that hard to be a movable chord? Any ideas? You can type in, jump on. What makes G7 a hard chord to move around? Thank you, Dr. Todd. The 4th string is open. I'm not covering it with a finger. I'm not covering it with a note. I'm not covering it with the finger is all I meant to say. So there are forms of the G7 where you do cover all 4 strings, and then you could move it around. But I'm going to let you in on a little secret. You can abbreviate and simplify, simply strum the strings that you do have covered. In this case, I'm covering strings 1, 2, and 3 from the floor up. So those are the only ones I'm going to strum. As long as I don't strum that open 4th string, well, it doesn't matter. Now, there's going to be times you want to close it off. But for our discussion today, let's let it ring out and just not strum it. Instead of doing a big open strum, I'm going to do a very controlled strum with my thumb. So same idea, G7 moves up the neck and we separate the shape of the chord from the name of the chord. It's a G7 shape, and at fret 1, it's a G7 chord as well. As we move it up, it becomes a G sharp 7, then an A7. Oh, A7. This is what I want to show you. G7, A7 at the 3rd and 4th frets. You probably know good old one finger A7 here. And now there's A7 with the G7 shape at frets 3 and 4. We can shorthand that and just say it's at fret 3 because that's the point of origin. You're right, Jerry. I'll let other people read that comment rather than delve into that right now. So here's a very simple demonstration of the value of having access to 2 versions of the same chord. So I love to play blues music, as you've probably started to notice in some of our uke club lessons. It's not only my style of music that I really like, but they happen to just sort of come up in the lessons often. So a really good key, I think, on ukulele for blues is A. We've got some open strings. We're not at the low end of our register. And there's a lot of nice stuff that you can do in that zone of notes that we have. So here's a real simple one. The chords you would want for a blues song would be A, D, and E, or E7. Any of those could be 7th versions. So I'm not even going to bother to play the whole blues structure for you. But there's a turnaround at the end as you to D7 to A. Now, something that you'll hear very often in guitar blues is a walk down, and it goes like this. Isn't that nice? I'll do it again. You could do that as a turnaround between verses, or if you're Bob Dylan, you could write a whole song around it. They'll stone you when you're walking down the street. But it doesn't matter where you choose to use it. What happens is exactly the same. Think about it. Where are we for that walk down? I don't know if you're paying close attention to my fingers. Well, I'm at the 2nd position A. We're playing our blues in the key of A. So that's our home chord, our 1 chord. So to find that walk down in this key or in any key, you can go to the 2nd position of that chord. Here's A in the 1st position, and here's A7 in the 2nd position. Doesn't matter if it's A major or A7. And you simply move down from the 2nd position to the 1st position, and you get that nice melodic walk down. So if I just strum the chord, you would get this. A7 walking down to 1st position, A7. Now you heard me do some finger picking around it, but the concept is exactly the same. I'm moving down from 2nd position, 1 step at a time, and ending at the 1st position of the same chord. In this case, A to A. Let me show it to you one more time so you get it. Then I'll take questions on it, okay? So, A at the 2nd position. Just that sounds very Robert Johnson-y to me. So I'll walk it down. Okay, and here's where it would fall in a blues song at the very end. E7, D7, and nice, eh? So that's kind of that was actually a pretty detailed introduction to the concept of movable chords. One example of how you would apply a movable chord to that style of song to show you what some of the value of knowing movable chords is. And I think next time we'll talk about some other shapes that you can move around, and I'll prepare something that's a little more melody based so you can see more what I'm talking about of adding melody notes onto your 2nd and 3rd position chords. So that's what I have planned for you. I'm happy to stay here. I'm happy to stay here all afternoon. It's a beautiful, absolutely beautiful day in New England. I'm in Massachusetts. And I've been outside to the Antique Festival on the town common. And dig this, as I was walking home today on this beautiful fall day, thinking, I've got to get home from my ukulele club meeting, the town band coincidentally burst into 5'2", Eyes of Blue, which happens to be the lesson I recorded just this morning for the uke club. So all very nice. Ken says, please encourage folks to post their daily questions, comments, etc. on Facebook so we can all benefit. Yeah, we've talked about that a little bit. I very much prefer for you to post your questions that are ukulele related on Facebook, because we've got a lot of smart people. We've got a lot of nice people. We have one curmudgeon, and I'm not going to name any names, but you know who you are. I'm joking. And it just benefits everybody if we can have that discussion in the public forum. Of course, if you have questions about your account or you don't like the way I do something, you can send that to me privately. If anybody wants to jump on and ask questions, you're welcome to do that. We've got 3 empty squares. I've been calling it the Brady Bunch, but all of a sudden I realized it's like Hollywood squares. So we need Paul Lind in 1 square, Ellen DeGeneres, and Wayne Brady. So whoever wants to jump on. Mom, 2 cats. I'm not sure who that is. That's Mary Beth. Could you include practices for the beginning group? Mary Beth, I'm not sure exactly what you mean. Can you clarify your question a little bit? Do you mean just some practice routines or specific things to practice? Yeah, so anyway, I was saying I'm happy to stay here and answer questions as long as you guys have questions, but I don't want to extend this overly long and take up your whole afternoon. On your daily message, specific things probably. Yeah, you know, that's an interesting question, Mary Beth, because each lesson in itself, I would say, is the practice. So let me think on that. I'll see if I can guide you in a few more specific areas. And the interesting thing about the way the uke club is set up is that it is those things. I try to keep those videos as short as I possibly can. As you can tell, I tend to be a little loquacious when I get talking. It's because I love talking about music and ukuleles, and we draw such a nice crowd that it's fun to feel like we're communicating on a subject that we all love. That said, you know, I feel like maybe these weekly meetings are the time where we can go beyond the specific lessons. We're sort of pinned in a little bit by the lessons that are given in the book I've chosen for us to use. I think it's really solid, and that's why I chose it. But I hope that we'll have some more freedom and flexibility to discuss ideas that aren't really covered in that particular book during these weekly get-togethers. Andrea's here. Hi, Andrea. Any questions about what I was just talking about today, this whole idea of movable chords or multiple chord shapes for the same chord name? It's kind of a deep subject. If you're getting it, fantastic. If you're struggling with it at this point, don't be surprised. Each winter, I live near Boston, Massachusetts, and I teach at a lot of places around town, but at the Cambridge Center for Adult Ed, each winter for the last 2 or 3, I've done a special series of single-purpose workshops. So each one is a 2-hour meeting on a Saturday morning dedicated to something specific. And this is one of our topics. So I spend a full 2 hours kind of going through what we've done today in 10 minutes. So if you are struggling with it, you know, it's a heady subject. Don't be surprised. It looks like Lynn's trying to get on. I hope we can get you in there. So I'm not seeing any questions, and I'm not seeing any specific questions about the topic today. So I hope that was interesting, valuable to you. I'll hang on for another minute or 2 just to make sure I'm not leaving anybody hanging, but I'd rather keep it too short than run too long. All right. So good. I really love having folks show up for these things. It really just makes it feel like the Uke Club is a real club where we've got real people doing real things. So thank you one and all, Todd and Mary Beth and Jerry, Ken, Lynn, Ralph. It looks like a couple of you tried to get in, and I don't know if the technology is stopping you or if I'm misinterpreting it somehow. But we'll call that a wrap for today, and I'll see you all online. Talk to you soon. Bye now.